Okay, so I've taken a little bit of time to sort of clean up my drawing a little bit, get my proportions a little more in order. And by proportion, I'm talking about like the, I don't know, the way that certain elements within the shoe relate to one another. So the kind of the, you know, the front part of the shoe, the size of it compared to the heel of the shoe, and compared to the size of the strap and the footbed of the shoe, say. And so, so I've kind of been playing around with that a little bit to get that just right. So you can see here that I have a pretty good contour line drawing started. Now we're going to play around with some playing with the line weight a little bit more. So I had my 2B before, and I'm going to switch to a, let's see, I think I'm going to switch to a 6B, and I'm going to sharpen my pencil so that it's pretty sharp. You don't necessarily want it to be a dull pencil because you want these lines to vary a lot. So if you have sort of a dull pencil, it doesn't do very much. It just sort of, the dull pencil sort of just makes kind of blobs. So you want to think about where your light is coming from first. And so I'm thinking about my light is kind of coming from the right here. So if I knew that my light is up here, now I'm going to play around with that a little bit. So even though you've got your image of your objects out in front of you, now you can really start to play around with the line weight a little bit. So I'm going to take this. I know the light's coming from this direction, so I'm going to make this line, like all the lines that are in the opposite direction, I'm going to darken them up, actually. And also, like, if I know that there is a space that is like it's on the opposite side, so I know that this footbed space of this shoe is going to be it's going to be darker in this area here, sort of. And I want to make this pretty dark. I also might want to make it a little bit on the thicker side, just because I want to give my shoe a little bit more heft. I want to make sure that it starts to feel varied a little bit, as opposed to kind of like the same kind of line. So I'm pushing pretty hard on my pencil here to get that to happen, actually. So I'm going to also do this, and let's see. I think I'm going to maybe just darken this up just a little bit, but not quite as much. And then I'm going to take this line and go over the edge. The other thing you want to think about is that for a lot of your object, you probably have, you know, some spaces that go they kind of wrap around, and so you don't want to forget the kind of the space where it wraps around a little bit. And so I'm going to leave this open. Now I have a mechanical pencil here because I have some at my house and I kind of like them. I don't use them all the time for drawing, but I think that they're kind of a nice thing to have just for like really fine lines and just for kind of a variety of interests. So you don't want to use a mechanical pencil probably all the time, but they're sort of fun to play with. And so I always have them around because my fiance likes them, and he likes writing really small and stuff. So I always think that's kind of nice. So I kind of keep them around too. So I know that the light's coming from this opposite side, so I'm going to really thicken this up. And I've got a little bit of an edge on this shoe here. So this is kind of the edge, and it's going to go down into here. Now the lines don't have to stay the same, but you do want to make sure that the lines that are in front of your other lines are actually read as they're in front of. So you want to make sure that you pull lines right up to the edge of other lines. I'll kind of show you what I mean by that here in a minute too. This is going to be a really dark space here. Now you could even switch this from like a 6B to like say a 8B. So I have an 8B or a 7B here too if you want to make it really dark. You'll notice that I am leaving some spaces light though, because that's also an important thing. I was thinking a lot about the perspective of these heels too, so okay, so I've got that, and I'm going to leave, I think I'm going to leave this line a little bit on the lighter side. Okay. Also, the back of this goes up like this. There, so now it's kind of in front of that heel there. I'm going to keep kind of working here. Now this line goes in front of this one, so you want to make sure it actually, this line comes right up to the edge of that. And I'm not going to make this super dark because the light's coming from this side a little bit more. And I am going to vary this line a little bit because this one gets darker in this space because the light is coming from the top. So I'm going to wrap that around a little bit and probably erase this up a little bit, make that line a little bit on the lighter side. Or the thinner side too. You can kind of vary it so it's both thick and thin line if you want to. But you kind of know where the light's hitting it, so you kind of want to keep that in mind as you're going along. The space back here too, I know is going to be fairly dark, so I'd probably darken this space up a lot. And then I'd leave this space pretty light. I think I'm going to actually darken this up a lot. One thing too, you can always move your paper if you need to. You don't necessarily need to leave it all in one space. This is really hard to do this like in a video, but I can kind of move it so that I get a little bit more, my arm doesn't get in the way, you know. So, and then I'm going to kind of clean up some of these spaces a little bit. Okay. So that's looking pretty good as far as as far as contour line weight is going. And I'm gonna work into this one over here now. So I think I'll also use my 6B. So it really helps to have a range of pencils here, because now you're really starting to work into the space and change the thickness and the thinness of the line. So you really can't do this just without a variety of pencils. I mean, you can, but it's really hard and it's just not very efficient, I would say. So I kind of like having the right tools to get me through there. So this line, see how this is a lot thinner than this one? This is thicker because it's on the other side. Let's see. And I'm going to darken up these over here also because they're on the back side of my shoe from the light. Okay. I'm going to leave this front part a little bit lighter, sort of like I did with that one. And then I'm going to darken this space up under here, especially because it's so dark. So I switched it to my 8B. And I'm going to have that cruise along down here. I'm trying to avoid the caterpillar line, so you want to have it look like a real confident line. You know, even if it takes like multiple strokes to get it there. You see how I'm not going back into it like a kind of like a caterpillar. And you can always come back and clean that up a little bit. I'm going to make this shoe front a little bit pointier because I like these are a little bit on the pointier side, so I'm going to kind of make this, try to make it match this one too. Sort of challenging. That means I need to pull this line up a little bit too, this dark line, and then erase this. So it starts to look like I want to make sure the front of this looks like it's in front of this over here, and that gives us a little bit more space to sort of deal with there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I might pull this up just a little bit more up here. So you'll see, you can tell here that like this is taking me quite a while. And if you expect to just knock this out of the park like really fast, you're setting yourself up for really high expectations, especially if you don't draw a lot. So make sure you give yourself enough time. You can see I draw all the time and it's given me a little bit of trouble. So, but that's okay. I can kind of work through that and kind of get this so that it starts to look more actually like what I'm looking at in front of me. Okay, so I want to make sure that line there looks a little bit more dainty, yeah, as opposed to a real thick heavy line probably. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to do this on the sort of the back edge of my shoe strap here too. Now I want to make sure, because this is a pair of shoes too, I want to make sure they kind of match. You can kind of see how that, you know, if you feel like one shoe looks too big or too small, you probably want to change that. Let's see. It probably looks something like that. Actually, I have a little bit of an edge on this here too, so I'm going to put that in there so I can see it. There's little details that exist too that you probably, and if I do it to one, I probably should do it to the other side too. I don't want to make it too dark, but some of those details are pretty important. So now some of the lines are going to be, they can go from thick to thin, but you'll see how like right here, I want to make sure that looks like it's behind this strap space. So I might have to pull my eraser up and just pull it right up close to there. So you don't necessarily want to make this line darker, but you do want to make it look like this line is going like behind here so that they sort of match and line up. So if I'm doing that over there, I might as well do it over here too. Okay, well that's looking okay. So now I have a pretty strong range of line weight going on, which is really good. I'm gonna make this a little bit on the darker side on this side before it gets light again, and then it maybe goes dark on the interior space here and pretty light along the top. I'm gonna make sure I keep that open because that's actually what it looks like more. And then also this shoe space should get a little bit darker as it goes on the interior, what we think of as the interior space of the footbed of the shoe. I might want to smooth that out a little bit and make this a little bit darker in here because there's a shadow here from the, you know, it would go across here if I was drawing full shading. Now I don't want you to like shade your shoe all the way because a really good contour line drawing is really pretty challenging in itself, and so that's looking pretty good now. And it's a lot more interesting than when we started with originally. Okay, the other thing is that you might want to have some sort of a background for your shoes to exist in, and so I sort of like to put a background in mine so that it's just not shoes floating around in space. You can always clean up some of these spaces too as you kind of get further. Yeah, you want to make sure you don't make your lines too dark because then it makes it really hard to erase. And you can use whatever eraser you want. There's a couple different types. Actually, I'm trying to see if I have any other erasers. I've got kind of my blue eraser, my blue and white eraser, and it's really helpful too, so I'll show you how to use that here in a little bit. But I always like to put my background in a little bit. So my shoes are kind of sitting up on a ledge up here too, and so you can always use a ruler if you want to, but I think I'm going to kind of eyeball it to start with. Now, these shoes are on a desk, like along the edge of a desk, and you can do this if you want to or not, but I kind of like to give them a little bit of a sense that they're sitting somewhere. So you can have a kind of an edge if you want to. Let's see. I kind of like using like a ruler of some sort to see what it's going to look like behind there. So I have this really cool, this isn't a ruler, but it's like a straight edge, and I like to see there. Now your eyes just fell out because it's so bright. But I kind of like to see what it would look like if the edge of my table was, one, horizontal, like if this was the edge here, or if it would be cooler to have it sort of on kind of an angle, like kind of like the shoes are going, or maybe even an opposite angle from what the shoes are actually doing. So you probably, if you do this, you probably don't want to have it like run right up to the edge of these things, because these are spots that have a lot of lines going already. So you might want to think about that. You want to make it so that your background edge is a little bit away from those types of lines. So I think I'm going to make mine my back edge of my desk. Let's see, could be even down here a little bit. It doesn't really matter. It could be like how you actually have it at your house, or you could just draw it the way that you feel like it should go. Let's see, my heels are right up on the edge of the table. It's kind of hard to decide what you want to do when you're making a drawing. So I think, but I kind of like having like a straight edge of some sort so I can really see what that's going to look like. So I think I'm going to put it maybe right about there, like the edge of my table top, because I am not running through any like other areas that are really have a lot of things going on. So you can see all these points of contact along the straps. Like there's not a whole bunch of stuff going on, so it's pretty plain. So I'm going to draw in just a real light line with my like my lighter pencil. You could use a H pencil maybe too, or even like a light 2B. Right, so at least you have a sense of like where the edge is, so that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to make it a little bit darker because I kind of want to make sure I can tell where it is. I think I'm going to use a maybe a 2B here, because I want my line to be a little bit on the softer side than my mechanical pencil. And make sure this line comes right up to the edge of your shoe edge, because you don't want it to like feel disjointed. You want it to come like right up behind your objects, right? Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. All right. You can also, if you ran over it a little bit, you can erase it so that your shape is right in front and there's no having to guess, like, does the line go in front or behind? Yeah, that looks pretty nice. So now you have your shoes in a space. Pretty cool.